Hi, our newest 5-star limited character Sparkle is finally out. Sparkle is a super unique unit that is able to increase the total skill points of your team, but also has a 50% action advance on her skill, which is basically a mini BRONYA skill. Together, these two allows us to make and play one of the strongest, but also one of the funnest team in this game. The comp is based around the duo of Sparkle plus BRONYA hyper buffing a DPS. However, the team isn't as straightforward as just using the right units. There's a few things we have to do before we can make this work. So this quick video will explain everything you need to know on how to play this super fun team. Before we start, I'll be giving away a supply pass / welcome moon / crystal card to my subscribers at 30k subs, so make sure you subscribe to enter. First off, why is this team good? The reason why this team is very strong is due to 3 main reasons. Sparkle's skill buffs last for 2 turns, unlike BRONYA's who only last for 1. This means that even if the DPS gets a turn that isn't dragged by Sparkle, they'll still have the buffs. And to go alongside the first reason, since Sparkle's skill is basically a budget BRONYA skill, if we speed tune our units correctly, we can get it to function basically like BRONYA's skill, making it possible to have a Sparkle turn into a DPS turn, then a BRONYA turn into a DPS turn. This team basically does the same thing as 1 speed behind BRONYA in the first MLC cycle, but without speed boots on our DPSs and better buff uptime. And finally, the last reason is because Sparkle's skill point increase. As you probably guessed, having most likely 3 characters on our team spamming skill will use a lot of skill points. That's where Sparkle's skill point increase and gain comes in, making it totally possible to play such a skill point negative team without heavy backlashes, if in fact any. Now that I've explained why the team is good, as mentioned in the intro, what do we have to do to make it work? Well, there are 2 main rules you have to follow when building this team. First is that Sparkle has to be faster than BRONYA. As stated just then, we want to be utilizing Sparkle's 2-turn buff, while BRONYA can only buff for 1 turn. But also since BRONYA's skill is a turn advance, it makes it easier to make Sparkle drag the DPS up first, then BRONYA, since even if it's a long time until the DPS next turn, BRONYA can bring it up immediately, unlike Sparkle. Second is that half of your DPS's action value has to be less than BRONYA's base action value. Now this is where it gets a bit dank. But in short, all we're doing here is making sure when Sparkle uses her skill, the next turn is guaranteed to be the DPS's, and not BRONYA's, as we want to use the action advance to allow our DPS to basically have 2 buff turns back to back. Basically, just make sure that half of 10,000 divided by your DPS's speed is less than 10,000 divided by BRONYA's speed. It should be pretty simple, as long as your DPS isn't too slow and your BRONYA isn't too fast. So, the rules are set and it's time to mention the 4 main variations of this team. Just as a disclaimer, we are setting up and making these variations based on the first cycle of MLC. So for other gamers, just follow the 2 rules I said before and you're set. Starting off, we probably have the most common one that's gonna be used. This variation I like to call it standard, as it is the most likely the standard one. This one simply follows the 2 rules and that's it, allowing the DPS to have 4 turns in the first cycle while using offensive boots like attack or HP etc. The second variation is called hyper. Now this is only for the super high investment stamina refreshing Andes. Well, unless you're insanely lucky. As the name suggests, this team is super hyper. We're looking to get 6 DPS turns in the first cycle. How this variation works is 2 ways. A. Run Vonwhack on both Sparkle and BRONYA and have your BRONYA at 174 speed or higher. This allows 3 turns in the first cycle, and then run Sparkle faster than BRONYA. So we are talking 175 and higher. Yeah, pretty hyper, eh? This allows us to do the Sparkle in the DPS, BRONYA in the DPS 3 times in the first cycle, hence the 6 DPS turns. Or B, run BRONYA at 201 speed or higher and run Sparkle even faster. Both will achieve the same result, but unfortunately, not many people are gonna be able to play this version, as, well, I don't really need to say it, the speed requirements speak for themselves. And remember, the second rule of this team. Yeah, well, if your BRONYA is this high of a speed, you might have to run speed boost on your DPS. The third variation is called wacky. I like to call it wacky because it really is wacky. For this version, we are looking to get 5 DPS turns in the first cycle. To achieve this, we are gonna need to be using Vonwhack on our main DPSs. No, you heard me. For those that have found Vonwhack to insanity, and have a good 2-piece for your main DPS, now is the time to shine, as if we run our Sparkle and BRONYA at a slightly slower speed like 135 on Sparkle and 134 on BRONYA, we can actually get 5 DPS turns with the first turn being the Vonwhack action advance one. The only downside of this variation is that you don't get the better planet ornament bonus on other sets, and the first turn of our DPS has no buffs. And finally, the fourth and last variation. I call it don't. Because don't do this. Don't make yourself suffer through this. Essentially what this team is combining both the wacky variation and the hyper variation. Meaning Vongmak plus good speed on your DPS and 201 plus speed on BRONYA and with an even faster sparkle. Because 174 speed plus Vongmak will not allow your DPS to sneak in a turn early. This team will get a total of 7 DPS turns in the first cycle and truly break the game. But is it really worth it? As I said, don't do this unless you prefer your pillow warm in a hot summer day. So yeah, I mean, of course, there are more versions such as Snow Healers and looking to 0 cycle, or doing something dank and getting 6 DPS turns with DPS into Sparkle into BRONYA. But I am too lazy to theorycraft that. So before I end the video, here's a quick MLC 12 showcase. This is a pretty highly invested account with all E0 S1, so the actual performance of this team may slightly differ.